Hey guys, welcome. आइए आज हम सॉल्व करते हैं नवंबर 20 का सीए फाउंडेशन का लॉ का पेपर, बेसिकली 60 मार्क्स के लिए और 6 क्वेश्चंस थे. सो फर्स्ट हियर इज द क्वेश्चन 1A. क्या कहता है, आइए समझते हैं. देखिए, एज आई हैव एक्सप्लेन कि हम जब भी कोई क्वेश्चन को पढ़े हमें उसमें जितने भी इंपॉर्टेंट हिंट्स है उसे हाईलाइट करना है ताकि हमें ये पता चले कि क्वेश्चन किस डायरेक्शन में जा रहा है. So, Mr. X, a businessman, has been fighting a long-drawn litigation. तो सबसे पहले ध्यान रखिए कि यहाँ पे लॉन्ग ड्रॉन एक लिटिगेशन है, कहीं पे केस चल रहा है. With Mr. Y, an industrialist, to support his legal campaign. तो अगेन लीगल कैंपेन की बात हो रही है, कुछ लीगल डिस्प्यूट की बात हो रही है. Enlist the service of Mr. C, a judicial officer, stating that the amount of rupees 10 lakhs would be paid to him if he does not take up the brief of Mr. Y. चलिए, यहाँ पे सबसे बड़ा हिंट दिया गया है. क्या कहा गया यहाँ पे कि मिस्टर एक्स और वाई में झगड़ा चल रहा था, लीगल जो डिस्प्यूट है वो, और मिस्टर एक्स ने मिस्टर सी को अप्रोच किया जो एक जुडिशियल ऑफिसर है, और उसको ये कहा गया कि भाई देखो, तुम चाहे कितने भी अच्छे लॉयर हो, चाहे कितना भी अच्छा तुम्हारा लॉ का नॉलेज है, लेकिन तुम मिस्टर वाई का सपोर्ट नहीं करना, ये उससे कहा गया है. अब यहां तक समझिए कि क्या ये टॉपिक, ऐसा कोई सिचुएशन हमारे लॉ में आता है जहां पे हम किसी को ये कहें कि भाई तुम किसी और का केस मत लो या किसी और को लॉफुली सपोर्ट मत करो और उसके लिए मैं आपको कुछ पैसे दूंगा. यहाँ पे मनी इज अबाउट 10 लाख रुपीज. तो क्या उसके लिए कोई प्रोविजन है? हम पढ़ते हैं उसके बारे में. Mr. C agrees, but at the end of the litigation, Mr. X refuses to pay to Mr. C. Decide whether Mr. C can recover the amount promised by Mr. X under the provisions of the Indian Contract Act 1872. तो सवाल ये है कि यहाँ पे बेसिकली क्वेश्चन किस पॉइंट का है. तो जो ये क्वेश्चन है वो बेसिकली दो प्रोविजन से रिलेटेड है. प्रोविजन नंबर 1 which is section 10 and second provision what is given over here is about section 28. So it depends upon both the provisions, section 10 as well as section 28. section 10 किसके बारे में बात करता है? वो बात करता है कि what are the essential elements of a valid contract. ठीक है, तो ये essentials के बारे में बात करता है. And it says about one of the elements of section 10. ठीक है, section 10 की अगर हम बात करें, there are a lot of essentials like the free consent, lawful consideration, lawful object, competent party, and the last one is not declared void by law. हमारा एग्रीमेंट कोई ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए जो लॉ ने स्पेसिफिकली void डिक्लेयर किया हो. तो ये जो है कि any agreement which is specifically declared void by law वो भी void माना जाएगा, उसको भी हम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं मान सकते. वो पॉइंट यहाँ पे किया गया. सेक्शन 28 एक void एग्रीमेंट के बारे में बात करता है और वो है restraint of legal action, restraint of lawful action. मतलब क्या हुआ? If you read the center point, सबसे पहले यहाँ पे सेक्शन 10 की बात हो रही है and second is section 28 जो कहता है कि agreements in restraint of legal proceedings will be considered as void. मतलब ये कि अगर हम किसी भी बंदे के साथ ऐसा एग्रीमेंट करते हैं जो कोई भी बंदे का जो लीगल राइट होता है, लीगल एक्शन लेने का, लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स करने का, अगर उसको रिस्ट्रेंट करता है, अगर उसको रोकता है, तो ऐसे एग्रीमेंट्स वॉइड माने जाएंगे. तो बेसिकली हम इस क्वेश्चन को कैसे आंसर करेंगे? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी हैव टू एक्सप्लेन द सेक्शन 10 जहां पे हमको सारे एलिमेंट्स के बारे में लिखना है, जैसे कि all agreements are contracts if they are made by the free consent of the parties competent to contract for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object and are not expressly declared void. तो ये जो पॉइंट है वो बेसिकली लास्ट पॉइंट के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट है. ओके, उसके बाद हमें सेक्शन 28 की एक्सप्लेनेशन देनी है कि लीगल एग्रीमेंट को, लीगल एक्शन, लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स को रोकने के लिए कोई भी अगर हम एग्रीमेंट करते तो उसे वॉइड माना जाएगा, और उसके बाद हमें कंक्लूजन ड्रॉ करना है. अब आफ्टर हैविंग अंडरस्टूड एंटायर थिंग व्हाट क्वेश्चन सेज अबाउट, तो यहाँ पे मिस्टर एक्स ने मिस्टर सी को, जो एक जुडिशियल ऑफिसर है, उसको पैसे देके मिस्टर वाई के लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स के राइट को रिस्ट्रेंट करने की कोशिश की. So here it is clear cut violation of section 28 and that is why over here the contract becomes void. Here the contract becomes void and that's why if you see question क्या पूछता है कि whether Mr. C can recover the amount promised by Mr. X, so answer would be no, वो amount को recover नहीं कर सकते. That's the explanation, guys. Okay, fine. So after question 1A, let's go to question 1B now. क्या कहना चाहता है समझते हैं. ABC Limited has allowed equity shares with voting rights. So this is the first hint what is given over here. Equity shares with the voting rights allowed it to another company called the XYZ Limited. Worth of rupees 15 crores. ये डेटा काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है. Worth of rupees 15 crores. And issued the non-convertible debenture. Non-convertible. देखिए, when we talk about non-convertible, that means that in future these debentures will not be converted into equity shares. मतलब ये हुआ कि इन debentures का voting right से कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. Not in present, not in future. ठीक है, इतना हिंट याद रखिएगा. So इन दो लाइन्स में कई सारे hints दी हुई हैं. Let's go ahead. Worth of rupees 40 crores during the financial year 1920. After that, total paid up equity share capital of the company is rupees 100 crores. ये डेटा भी काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है कि एक बार अलॉट कर दिया उसके बाद कंपनी का जो पेड अप कैपिटल है वो 100 crores है and the debenture is 120 crores. Okay, fine. So basically what they want to ask, define the meaning of associate company. What a wonderful question it is. And comment on whether ABC Limited and XYZ Limited are associate or not as per the Companies Act 2013. तो सबसे पहले हम डेटा को देख लेते हैं कि what are the data given in the question. So first of all they say that जो paid up share capital है, जो share capital है वो यहाँ पे 100 करोड़ हो जाती है. ये सबसे पहला डेटा है. Second important data, what is the determinant factor over here is equity share capital allotment to the company. It is 15 crores. On the basis of these two data, we will solve the question. Now, second thing is we must have to know, we have to understand that what is the definition of associate company, because in the question they have clearly asked that what is associate company. Associate company is basically defined under section 2, subsection 6. So what it says, let's understand this. It clearly says that in relation to another company, a company in which that other company has significant influence. ये सबसे पहला पॉइंट हुआ कि अगर एक कंपनी है उस कंपनी में अगर दूसरी कंपनी का क्या हो जाए, this is company number 2, significant influence. This is very very important. Significant influence. Then in relation to this company too will be considered as the associate company. Now what do we mean by significant influence? ये हम एग्जाम में लिखना है. So significant influence means वहां पे दो तरीके से हम significant influence को डिसाइड कर सकते हैं. First, on the basis of voting power. On the basis of voting power, if one company has that particular percentage of voting power in another company, then they're associate. And what the law has given over here? Law has said that 20% out of total voting power. Now I want to clarify that earlier before amendment taken place it was share capital, but after amendment now they have amended this concept and now it is total voting power. So in this entire question we have to calculate the total investment made by the company reaches up to 20% or not, and question becomes easy. Second option what the law said here, it is that participation in business decision. If one company has decision making power in another company, then again it is associate company. So participation in business decision. Got it? So if we complete the entire definition, look how does it go. It says that the expression significant influence means control of at least 20% of the total voting power or control of participation in business decisions under the agreement. Then we can say that it is associate. If we solve the entire question, what is the total investment made by the company? Then answer would be 15 crores. If we calculate 15 crores in the terms of percentage, it comes to what? 15 crore divided by 100, it comes what? 15% of the total voting power, because equity shares always contain what? The voting powers. So in this explanation, if you see here, it doesn't reach up to 20%, it reaches up to 15% only, and that's why over here, it's not the associate company. So we had to explain that what is associate company, what are the requirements, what is significant influence, and in the given question, why the company is not associate, that explanation we had to give. Okay, then the next question is the write any four exceptions to the doctrine of caveat emptor as per the Sales of Goods Act 1930. काफी इजी सवाल, तो यहाँ पे we have to explain the 2 points. The first is what is caveat emptor, means let the buyer beware. मतलब ये कि if the buyer is buying the goods, selecting the goods as per his choice without informing the seller that what is his requirement, and later on if the selected item turns to be unfit for his purpose, he cannot blame the seller. But this rule has certain exceptions. The exception के कौन कौन से point है? Let's look at to this. So guys, fitness as to quality or use, then goods purchased under the patent or the brand name, goods sold by description, goods of merchantable quality, sale by sample, goods by sample as well as description, trade usage, seller activity concealed a defect or is guilty of fraud. So these all are the points which are exceptions to the rule of caveat emptor. Out of these all the points, we needed to explain only four exceptions, not more than that. Okay, fine. After that, the next question is question 2a. अगेन गाइज ये एक स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन है, कोई ट्विस्ट नहीं है, कोई केस नहीं, डायरेक्टली क्वेश्चन पूछा गया है. डिफाइन मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन एंड द फ्रॉड, एक्सप्लेन द डिफरेंस बिटवीन फ्रॉड एंड मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन एज पर द इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट 1872. तो गाइज ये हमने पढ़ा था कि जो फ्रॉड होता है वो ऑलवेज विलफुली या इंटेंशनली किया जाता है. यहाँ पे जो भी स्टेटमेंट हम बोलते हैं, जो भी स्टेटमेंट हम यूज करते हैं, वो हमें पता है कि गलत है, फिर भी हम जानबूझ के सामने वाली पार्टी को डिसीव करने के लिए हम बोलते हैं ताकि हम उससे बेनिफिट ले पाए. बट इफ आई स्पीक अबाउट मिस रिप्रेजेंटेशन, ये इनोसेंटली होता है, हमें खुद नहीं मालूम, हमें खुद नहीं पता कि हम जो बोल रहे हैं वो गलत है और हमारी इंफॉर्मेशन गलत चली जाती है. ओके, हमने ये भी पढ़ा था कि इन द फ्रॉड सामने वाली पार्टी हमसे डैमेज क्लेम कर सकती है, लेकिन मिस रिप्रेजेंटेशन में ऐसा नहीं होता. So there are several points which says about misrepresentation and frauds difference. लेकिन ध्यान रखिए हमें सिर्फ और सिर्फ डिफरेंस नहीं लिखना था. अगर हम क्वेश्चन को केयरफुली पढ़े तो they have said that define misrepresentation and fraud and then explain the difference between these two. What does it mean? कि हमें सबसे पहले उनके मीनिंग समझाने थे एंड आफ्टर दैट हमें ये दोनों समझाने हैं. ओके, आई होप आपने ये जरूर किया होगा. ओके, द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज अगेन the straightforward question which says that state the circumstances under which the LLP may be wound up by the tribunal under the Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. Very easy question, and this question is based upon section 64 of the LLP Act 2008. So guys, these are the certain circumstances under which the tribunal can directly order to wind up the LLP. Which are those? The first is that if the LLP decides that LLP would be wound up by the tribunal, so यहाँ पे LLP खुद decide करती है. If for a period of more than 6 months the number of partners of the LLP is reduced below 2. तो हमने ये कंपनीज एक्ट में भी पढ़ा था कि अगर हमारे जो मेंबर्स होते हैं वो लॉ ने जितना भी नंबर तय किया है, वट एवर नंबर इज डिसाइडेड, इफ इट गोज बिलो दैट and if you are running the business for more than 6 months, then you have to go for winding up. Okay, someone may apply to tribunal and says that now LLP should not continue because now there are no minimum 2 members and let's wind it up. We also had understood that even after 6 months, if we don't make those less numbers to that minimum number, then after that whatever liability is incurred, then remaining partner will be liable. If the LLP is unable to pay its debts, if the LLP has acted against the interests of the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state or public order. So अगर यहाँ से कोई भी एक पॉइंट है तो ट्रिब्यूनल खुद उस LLP को वाइंड अप कर सकती है. गाइस, आफ्टर क्वेश्चन 2 लेट्स लर्न अबाउट क्वेश्चन 3. ठीक है, तो क्वेश्चन 3a, ठीक है, 3a में ध्यान रखिए कि 3a में 1 and 2, this part and this 2 part ये और में है. So either we could write a or we could have written part 2. So what it says, again it says the very straightforward question, what do you mean by partnership at will as per the Indian Partnership Act 1932? So guys, do you remember कि हमने classification पढ़ा था types of partnership का. So as per the types of partnership हमने ये पढ़ा था कि on the basis of duration what are the types, and second was on the basis of nature of business? What was the type? So on the basis of duration, we had the two types. The first is okay, specific partnership, and second one was partnership at will. Okay, in the case of nature of the partnership, we had again the two options, the two classifications. First one was particular partnership, and second one was general partnership. Okay, so out of all these four classifications, they have asked about the second one, and that is partnership at will. So what's the difference between specific and at will? So specific means for the specific period, specific tenure. When the tenure gets over, automatically that partnership gets dissolved. But at will, there is no any fixation that till what time it will continue. जब तक आप चाहो तब तक पार्टनरशिप को कंटिन्यू कर सकते हो. Then the question is how such a firm or partnership will get dissolved. So understand, if it is partnership at will, dissolution of that partnership, that means dissolution of that relation, will happen. How? Just by mere giving what? Notice to all the existing partners stating that okay, now we do not want to continue. This is how the partnership can be dissolved. Okay, guys. After that, the next question is comment on the right to expel partner must be exercised in good faith under the Indian Partnership Act 1932. What a wonderful question. So this point based upon the topic called the expulsion of the partner. Okay, so first question is, can we expel the partner? Answer is absolutely yes, provided the conditions which are given in the law and the section what we are finding is section 33. If all the conditions which are provided over there if met with, then we can definitely expel the partner. So what are those conditions? तो सबसे पहले कि एग्रीमेंट में उसका प्रोविजन होना चाहिए. सेकंड कंडीशन ये कहता है कि भाई ये डिसीजन मेजॉरिटी ऑफ पार्टनर से होना चाहिए. ठीक है. बट थर्ड कंडीशन इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड इफ यू सी द क्वेश्चन doesn't say about the first two conditions, it is asking for the third condition. एग्रीमेंट में प्रोविजन होना चाहिए, उसके ऊपर नहीं है. मेजोरिटी में से होना चाहिए, उसके ऊपर नहीं. लेकिन थर्ड कंडीशन ये कहती है कि एक्सपर्जन मस्ट बी इन गुड फेथ. एंड दे हैव आस्क्ड कि ये गुड फेथ का मतलब क्या होता है. व्हेन वी कैन से दैट एक्सपर्जन इज मेड इन गुड फेथ, so law says if all these three conditions are satisfied, we can say that expulsion was in good faith. What are those three conditions? Let's understand. First of all, first condition, it says that he must be given the notice. He must be served with the notice, with the intimation that bro, this is what's the reason why we want to expel you. उसको एक notice देना चाहिए. Second, he must be given an opportunity of being heard. उसको भाई ये कहना पड़ेगा कि तुझे अपनी सफाई में जो कुछ भी बोलना है, ये तेरे ऊपर चार्ज लगे, तूने कॉम्पिटिटर को ये इंफॉर्मेशन लीक किया इसलिए हम तेरे को निकाल रहे, यू आर नॉन एक्टिव इसलिए हम तेरे को निकाल रहे. यू हैव टू गिव अ नोटिस, and after that you he must be given the opportunity of being heard. He must be given a chance to defend himself. And third one, it says that ये पूरा जो expulsion है, it must be in the interest of the firm. Okay, for the personal interest we cannot remove him. So if the proper notice was issued, he was given the opportunity of being heard, and the entire expulsion was in the okay, all these 3 point notice आ गया, opportunity दिया था, and if the entire expulsion was in the interest of the firm, then we can say it was into good faith. And apart from this good faith, two other conditions: agreement between the partners, and second is by majority of the partners. Okay, after question 3a, let's go to question 3b. क्या कहता है समझते हैं. Referring to the provisions of the Indian Partnership Act 1932, again guys, the straightforward question, क्या कहना चाहता है? Answer the following. What are the consequences of non-registration of partnership firm? What is the question? Okay, and what are the rights which won't be affected by non-registration of the partnership firm? तो guys, ये हमने क्लास में पढ़ा था कि अगर हमारी फर्म रजिस्टर नहीं होते तो उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस क्या है. सबसे पहले तो ये समझिए that whether registration of partnership firm, it is optional or compulsory. So law language doesn't make it compulsory for the registration, and that's why ये एक optional procedure है. But if you don't register firm, then there are certain disadvantages. तो वो कौन कौन से हैं? सबसे पहला है कि भाई फर्म थर्ड पार्टी पे केस नहीं कर सकती. हम ये भी पढ़ा था कि पार्टनर एक दूसरे के ऊपर केस नहीं कर सकते in case of there is any dispute. We also understood, but third party can definitely file suit on the firm. And fourth point हमने पढ़ा था that no any set off is allowed. कोई adjustment allowed नहीं है. No set off is allowed except rupees 100. Up to rupees 100 you can go for the adjustment. Up to rupees 100 you can go for the set off. Beyond that it is not allowed. Okay, so these are the certain effect of non-registration. But second question ये भी समझने जैसा है. वो ये कहता है that what are the rights which won't be affected. So basically what this question tries to ask, it tries to ask that even if the firm is not registered, but still it has certain rights to enjoy. What are those rights? So let's do this. So guys, these are certain rights which are given here. Look, the first is that partner has a right to go for the dissolution. He has a right to sue for the dissolution of the firm or for the accounts of the firm. So this right is not taken back even if the firm is not registered. Okay, second is the power of an official assignee or receiver to realize the property of an insolvent partner. तो अगर कोई पार्टनर इंसॉल्वेंट हो जाता है तो उसका जो शेयर है फर्म में, ठीक है, वो देना पड़ेगा. वो हर एक पार्टनर का राइट है. अगर वो फर्म ने नहीं दिया देन ऑफिशियल असाइनी हैज राइट टू रिकवर बाय फाइलिंग द सूट. तो वो राइट इंटैक्ट रहेगा. द राइट्स ऑफ द फर्म और इट्स पार्टनर्स हैविंग नो प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस इन इंडिया. सो दैट इज क्वाइट कॉमन कि ऐसी फर्म जिसका इंडिया में कोई कामकाज ही नहीं है, सब कुछ फॉरेन से ही करती है, तो ऐसी फर्म को कुछ भी अफेक्ट नहीं होगा. एनी सूट और सेट ऑफ इन विच द क्लेम डजंट एक्सीड रुपीज 100. अभी हमने पढ़ा कि 100 रुपीज तक का सेट ऑफ का जो क्लेम है उसके लिए सूट कर सकते हैं. उसके लिए राइट्स अवेलेबल है. द राइट ऑफ अ थर्ड पार्टी टू सू द अनरजिस्टर्ड फर्म और इट्स पार्टनर्स, दैट आल्सो वी हैव कवर्ड अप इन द फर्स्ट पॉइंट कि थर्ड पार्टी का राइट है इसके ऊपर केस करने का, फर्म के ऊपर केस करने का, पार्टनर्स के ऊपर केस करने का, बट unregistered firm cannot do this. So again guys, it was easy question. Okay, so the next question is here, question 1c, which says that in the light of provisions of the Indian Contract Act 1872, answer the following. So let's study the first question, what it says. Okay, तो क्या कहना चाहता है ये, that Mr. S and Mr. R made contract wherein Mr. S agreed to deliver paper cup manufacturing machine to Mr. R and to receive payment on delivery. Okay, so there was a contract between Mr. S and Mr. R. One has promised to deliver the machine and other had promised to pay for that on delivery. Mr. R didn't pay the agreed price. Decide whether Mr. S is bound to fulfill his promise at the time of delivery or not. What an interesting question. So first of all, try to understand that there are two parties. Both of them had promised to perform certain performances, certain promises against each other. We can see here that on performance, Mr. R didn't pay the amount which was actually a promise. उस वक्त बोला गया था कि भाई हाँ मैं पे करूंगा, लेकिन पे नहीं किया. अब क्या करेंगे? तो ध्यान रखिए, when at the time of performance, if the party is not performing the promise, तो उसे हम कहते हैं actual breach of performance या contract, actual breach. Now if it is actual breach of contract, actual breach of performance, then it gives the agreed party certain rights. कुछ rights उसको मिलेंगे. What are the rights? So try to understand. The rights are actually categorized based upon this concept. What it says that if I say about the rights of aggrieved party, rights of aggrieved party can be categorized into two parts. The first is when time is important to the contract and when time is not important to the contract. And the answer to both these questions are different. If time was important and on time the performance is not performed, then what are the consequences? Let's understand. At that point of time, if the time is essence of the contract is voidable at the options of the aggrieved party. So aggrieved party if wants, he can cancel the contract. The aggrieved party can claim the compensation for the loss of non-performance. And third is the aggrieved party cannot reject the transaction when he accepts the delayed performance. So third is the relief. Okay, that if you accept it, then you cannot reject it. But the first two says that if you don't want to accept it, then it becomes voidable. That means you are not under obligation to perform your promise. And the second says you have right to claim the compensation. But if the time is not essence to the contract doesn't become voidable, but aggrieved party can definitely claim the damages. So as this question doesn't specify clearly here that whether time was essence or not, we have to write it in both the ways. If time was important or essence to the contract, then what was the answer? And if the time was not essence, then what's the answer? Okay, fine. After then, question C, part 2. What it says that Mr. Y given loan to Mr. G of rupees 30 lakhs. Mr. G defaulted the loan on due date and time became and the debt became time bad. After the time bad debt, Mr. G agreed to settle the full amount to Mr. Y. Whether acceptance of time bad debt contract is enforceable in law or not. So first of all, we have to understand कि any agreement which is made to repay the time bad debt, is it valid or not? क्या ये valid है या नहीं है? So if we study the law, it says that as far as time bad debt is concerned, the repayment of the same would be valid, but subject to fulfillment of certain conditions. Certain conditions. If all those conditions are satisfied, then we can say that yes, person is liable to pay. What are those conditions? Understand point number one, that debt must be time bad debt. Condition number two is it must be given in writing. It must be given in writing. Okay, let's see about this. First is it must be in writing. The debt must be time bad, and the third is it must be signed by the person. Mere writing is not sufficient. It must have been signed. Okay, must have been signed by the promisor. When all these conditions are satisfied, then we can say that time bad debt, promise to pay time bad debt, is valid. As we can see, this question talks about time bad debt, but other conditions they have not specified. Whether the promise was made in writing or not, whether the person had signed to do or not, that data is missing, and that's why we have to put the conditions that if all these conditions are satisfied, then Mr. G is liable, otherwise not liable. Then that contract is enforceable, otherwise not enforceable. Got it? Okay. Then question 3C part 3. It says that A and B entered into a contract to supply a unique item. Yes, this is the hint given in the question, unique item. Alternate of which is not available in the market. Okay, that is again another hint, not available in the market. A refused to supply the agreed unique item to B. What directions could be given by the court for breach of such contract? Wonderful question. Actually कई सारे hints दी गई हैं. देखिए, two points are very important. First is the unique item and second is breach of contract. Let's guess कि unique item एक painting है, painting of Mona Lisa. We contracted to buy this, but on time he refused. क्या compensation sufficient रहेगा? Compensation. Understand, sometimes when we contract, money doesn't matter, compensation doesn't matter. We like that specific performance only. We like that particular item only. So understand, over here we can request the court that we do not want to get the compensation, but we want to get the specific performance. Understand, specific performance. हम कह सकते कि हमें वही चाहिए जो पार्टी ने प्रॉमिस किया था. We don't want to accept anything what is lesser than that, what is alternate to that. Now understand, Law clearly says that a specific performance, it's not the right of every party. Party doesn't have right to demand that specific performance. हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि नहीं मुझे वही चाहिए और वही दिलवाओ, नहीं. Who will decide? Court will decide. While deciding that whether compensation will be awarded or specific item will be awarded, law court will consider so many factors. कई सारे factors को वो consider करेगा कि भाई ये item कौन सी है, alternative in the market is available or not, what's the price for that. Lot of factors are there, and if court satisfies that alternative in the market is not available, other standard is not available, and there is no any other option rather than giving the specific performance only, tab jaake court may allow that. So we have to write that what are the circumstances under which court will allow the specific performance of the contract. Then over here, these are the points, understand. Under these circumstances, court can allow the specific performance if there is no standard for ascertaining the actual damage. अगर हम compensation वहां पे तय ही नहीं कर सकते, then we have to provide the specific performance only. If there is no exact substitute or alternative to the subject matter, and this hint is clearly given in the question, it is usually granted in contracts connected with the land, buildings, rare articles, and the unique goods having some special value to the party. कुछ rare case, कुछ unique thing होती है, कुछ एंटिक चीजें होती है, कुछ ऐसे आर्टिकल्स जो काफी प्रेशियस होते हैं, कुछ ऐसी बिल्डिंग लैंड जो काफी बोलते हैं ना कि पार्टी के लिए काफी वैल्यूएबल है. उसके अलावा कई वैल्यूएबल इन द सेंस व्हाट, फॉर एग्जांपल आई वांट टू सेट अप द फैक्ट्री व्हिच इज द रोड टच, देयर इज नो एनी अदर लैंड व्हिच इज रोड टच. अब मुझे कहीं और जमीन नहीं चाहिए, मुझे पैसा नहीं चाहिए, मुझे वही रोड टच वाली जमीन चाहिए, बिकॉज दैट इज द वैल्यू फॉर माई बिजनेस. ओके, तो ऐसे केसेस में यहाँ पे कोर्ट क्या कर सकती है, स्पेसिफिक परफॉर्मेंस दे सकती है. Granting the suit for specific performance is at the sole discretion of the court and the party cannot demand it as a right. तो एज अ राइट डिमांड नहीं हो सकता, वो कोर्ट डिसाइड करेगी कि क्या कॉम्पनसेशन मिलेगा या स्पेसिफिक परफॉर्मेंस मिलेगा. ओके, तो वी हैड टू राइट दोस थिंग. होप आपने लिखा होगा. Okay, so the next question is question 4a. Again guys, it says the straightforward question. What it says that explain any 6 circumstances in detail in which non-owner can convey better title to bona fide purchaser of goods for value as per the Sales of Goods Act for the 6 marks. So we had a point जिसमें हमने ये सीखा कि भाई सिर्फ और सिर्फ ओनर ही बेटर टाइटल पास कर सकता है, बट दैट रूल हैड certain exceptions. There were so many exceptions. Out of them, we had to write only 6. So वो ऐसे कौन-कौन से points थे? Let's have a look into this. हमने ये सब पढ़ा था कि sale by mercantile agent, what are the conditions? Sale by one of the joint owners, sale by a person in possession of the goods under a voidable contract, sale by a person who has already sold the goods but continues to have the possession, sale after sale, sale by buyer obtaining possession before the property in the goods has vested in him. तो agreement तो sale हो गया है लेकिन sale होना बाकी है, तब अगर उसने बेच दिया तो क्या होगा. सेल बाय एस्टिपल, सेल बाय अनपेड सेलर, ऑल दिस पॉइंट जो यहाँ पे उनमें से हमें 6 पॉइंट्स को डिफाइन करना था. ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, क्वेश्चन 4b क्या कहता है, PQR and S are the partners in PQRS and company. ठीक है भाई, वो सब पार्टनर्स थे. आफ्टर दैट a partnership firm which deals in trading of washing machines of various brands. तो यहाँ तक इंट्रोडक्शन दिया गया है. there is a firm which actually engaged in so many various washing machine like items. Due to conflict of views between partners, ठीक है, P and Q decided to leave. भाई झगड़ा हो गया और P and Q ने ये डिसाइड किया कि चलो छोड़ देते फर्म को. So guys, here it is retirement. ये सबसे पहला हिंट दिया है क्वेश्चन में. Retirement, when you leave the firm, when you resign, it is called retirement. Okay, the partnership formed and started competitive business on 31st July. Again, very good hint given in the question. They have started students competitive business. So सबसे पहली बात, they left the firm and after leaving it they started competitive business. ठीक है, in the name of Messrs PQ and Company. ठीक है, meanwhile R&S have continued using the property in the name of PQRS and Company. सो 4 लोग थे PQRS, ठीक है, आउट ऑफ देम PQ दे लेफ्ट, बचे क्या RS. सो दिस सेंटेंस सेज कि भाई RS कंटिन्यूड टू रन द बिजनेस. सो 4 पार्टनर्स जो थे उसमें से 2 अलग हो गए, उनका अलग से बिजनेस है, 2 अभी भी एग्जिस्टिंग फर्म को ही कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, यहाँ तक का पूरा डेटा दिया गया, लॉट्स ऑफ हिंट्स आर गिवन. Now let's see that what are the questions they have asked. First question they have asked that based on the above facts, explain in detail the rights of outgoing partners as per the Indian Partnership Act. So we have to explain that what are the rights of retiring partner and comment on the following. So guys understand, entire question का जो आंसर है वो 2 पार्ट्स में डिवाइड होगा. सबसे पहले आंखें बंद करके हमें लिख देना है what are the rights. So in the outgoing partner point we had learned that कौन कौन से right हो गए. So after retirement, can he start his competitive business? Answer is absolutely yes, provided they have fulfilled certain conditions. क्या वो liable होगा liability के लिए? आंसर है नहीं होगा. अगर उसका पैसा वापस नहीं मिला, रिटायरिंग पार्टनर जब रिटायर होता है तो पूरा रिकैलकुलेशन होता है, अकाउंट को सेटल करना पड़ता है, और अगर उसका कैपिटल उसको वापस नहीं मिला, can he ask for the subsequent profit sharing? Answer is yes, तो he can ask for the subsequent profit sharing. और अगर subsequent profit sharing नहीं मिलता तो can he ask for the interest on the capital which is lying over there in the firm? Answer is yes. और क्या परसेंटेज होगा? If it is not agreed, it is 6%. So ये कुछ rights थे हमारे रिटायरिंग पार्टनर के जो हमें यहाँ पे लिखने हैं. ठीक है. सेकेंड, rights of P&Q to start a competitive business. So specifically they have asked, ठीक है, there are so many rights, but can P&Q after retirement start the competitive business? So answer क्या होगा? Answer होगा absolutely yes, they can do this, but subject to certain conditions. And what those conditions are? सबसे पहली बात यहाँ पे that these are not allowed to use the name of the firm. आपको firm का नाम use नहीं करना है. Second, you cannot solicit the customer of the existing firm. If voluntarily they are coming, it is fine, but you don't have right to solicit them. And third, जो हमने पढ़ा था, you don't have right to represent yourself as the partner of the firm. If these are the conditions you have satisfied, then no problem, you can start competitive business even next to the existing partnership firm. Okay. Next question says that rights of P&Q regarding their share in the property of Messrs PQRS and company. So already we have studied कि जो भी property अभी भी firm में है या तो वो वापस दे दो. If that contribution is not returned back, if that capital is not returned, and firm is still using that, then retiring partners do have right to ask for the subsequent profit sharing, or they have right to claim the interest on that contribution. So that much we had to write over here. ठीक है, आपने जरूर लिखा होगा. So this is और हमें फर्म का नाम यूज नहीं करना है. अगर हम कॉम्पिटिटिव फर्म यूज करते हैं तो वो सारी बातें हमको यहाँ पे लिखनी थी. राइट. Now actually yes, this question depends upon section 36 and 37. Okay, after that now we have moved to question 5. Okay, so what question 5a says that? It says that Mrs. R owns a two-wheeler which she handed over to her friend Miss K. तो भाई टू व्हीलर था मिस आर के पास जो अपनी फ्रेंड को दे दिया ऑन सेल और रिटर्न बेसिस. पूरे हमारे सिलेबस में सेल और रिटर्न बेसिस जो है वो लॉ में सोगा में आता है, सेल्स ऑफ गुड्स एक्ट में आता है. ठीक है. इवन आफ्टर अ वीक Mrs. K neither returned the vehicle nor made payment for it. She instead of that pledged the vehicle to Mr. A to obtain a loan. तो ये काफी important hint है in the question. To obtain a loan, Miss R now wants to claim the two-wheeler from Mr. A. Will she succeed or not? काफी important question है यहाँ पे. ठीक है. So we have to decide that whether ownership was transferred or not, whether property had been transferred or not. So what are the rules for passing the ownership to the subsequent party in case of the sale or return basis? So these are the rules how we can convey the passing of property. तो अगर किसी पार्टी को गुड्स दिए गए हैं ऑन सेल और रिटर्न बेसिस, अब हम ये कह सकते हैं कि वो बंदा ओनर हो गया. सो अंडरस्टैंड, if he was owner and he sold, then seller doesn't have a right to claim it back. But he was not owner and he sold, then without having proper title he sold, ऐसा हम मानेंगे तो हम उसको ले सकते हैं. ठीक है, देखते हैं कि इस क्वेश्चन में क्या वो वहां पे क्वालिफाई होता है. So when we can say that property has been transferred in case of sale or return basis, सबसे पहला expressly if he conveys that yes he has accepted it, either oral either written, अगर वो कह देता कि हाँ भाई मैंने वो गुड्स रख लिए हैं, then he becomes owner. Second, if he doesn't express but he expresses by conduct, by conduct का मतलब क्या हुआ, impliedly अगर वो कुछ करता है जिससे acceptance पता चल जाए तो भी वो owner बन जाता है. By conduct means what? By conduct means what? He doesn't use the words but he acts, वो कुछ act करता है, and on the basis of that act, on the basis of that act we can imply that whether he has become owner or not. For example, हमने किसी को goods दिए and after giving the goods he sold to somebody else, he becomes automatically owner of the goods. हमने किसी को goods दिए and he pledged the goods, he pledged the goods with someone to get the loan, automatically he becomes owner of the goods. तो हम देखेंगे कि हमारा जो क्वेश्चन है वो सेकंड कैटेगरी में आता है. गुड्स दिए, अभी कुछ कंफर्म नहीं हुआ लेकिन उसने प्लेज कर दिए. जब प्लेज कर दिए इट मींस he has given the consent, he has given the acceptance by conduct, by his behavior, and he becomes owner of the goods, and ownership has already been transferred in favor of whom? Miss K. और अगर ओनरशिप ट्रांसफर हो गई है then definitely you can sell the goods. so यहाँ पे उसने जो लोन लिया है या गुड्स अगर सेल भी कर दिए होते, still Mrs. R doesn't have any right to claim it back from Mr. A क्योंकि ये validly transfer हुआ है. ठीक है, थर्ड पॉइंट जो यहाँ पे है वो टाइम के लिए आता है कि if the buyer keeps the goods beyond time and that time expires and still he has the possession, then automatically he becomes what? The owner of the goods. Okay, after that the next question is, okay, so उसके रिलेटेड ये सारे क्वेश्चंस थे यहाँ पे. Examined with reference to the provisions of the Sales of Goods Act of 1930, what recourse is available to Miss R, तो वो हमने समझ लिया. Would your answer be different if it had been expressly provided that the vehicle would remain the property of Miss R until the price has been paid? What a twist in the question. आपका आंसर क्या होगा अगर हमने ये पहले से अग्री कर लिया है कि जब तक आप पैसे पे नहीं करते तब तक सेलर ही ओनर रहेगा. So guys, ध्यान रखिए कि लॉ कहता है कि if you have any specific agreement then give first importance to the agreement. In the absence of agreement refer to the provisions of the law. तो यहाँ पे agreement में ये पहले से ही डिसाइड कर दिया गया है कि भाई जब तक पैसा पे नहीं होगा तब तक ओनरशिप ट्रांसफर नहीं होगी. So even though you have pledged the goods, buyer does not become owner, and in that case definitely yes, Miss R can get her vehicle back. Okay, next question is question 5b. What it says that what are the significant points of section 8 company which are not applicable for other companies? Briefly explain with reference to provisions of the Companies Act 2013. So guys, again it is the straightforward question. section 8 company क्या होती है? तो हम सभी जानते हैं कि charitable company होती है. Any company which wants to get incorporated with a charitable object, तो हम सेक्शन 8 में जाएंगे. हाउ द सेक्शन 8 कंपनी विल बी इनकॉर्पोरेटेड. सो कंपनी नीड्स टू गेट द लाइसेंस फ्रॉम द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और उसके लिए कुछ कंडीशंस होती है, जैसे कि आप डिविडेंड इश्यू नहीं कर सकते, आपके ऑब्जेक्टिव चैरिटेबल होने चाहिए. ठीक है, एंड व्हाटएवर प्रॉफिट इज लेफ्ट वो उस ऑब्जेक्ट को प्रमोट करने के लिए ही यूज होगा. इट कैन नॉट बी यूज्ड फॉर एनी अदर पर्पसेस. ओके, अगर आपने कोई भी कंडीशंस फॉलो नहीं की देन सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हैज द राइट टू रिवोक द लाइसेंस. तो ये सारी बातें यहाँ पे लिखनी थी. ठीक है, after that we are going to the last question for the law, and that is the question 6. So first it says that enumerate the difference between wagering agreements and contract of insurance. Okay, wagering agreement and the contract of insurance. So wager, it's just kind of speculation, हमने उसके बारे में पढ़ा था, और इंश्योरेंस जो है that is indemnity. ठीक है, तो स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन है, indemnity में क्या आता है and wagering में क्या आता है. Okay, next is explain in detail the circumstances which led to liability of firm for misapplication by partners as per provisions of the Indian Partnership Act 1932. So if we see here, okay, so it is based upon the section 27. What section 27 says? That liability of firm for the misapplication by partners. So question here is, firm is liable for the partners fraud or partners actions or not? Whether firm is liable or not. So answer would be absolutely yes. If the partner was authorized by authority, whether implied or express, and he misapplied money, then firm is liable to the third party. However, later on firm can recover that amount of fraud or misconduct from the partner. That's the different story. लेकिन अगर पार्टनर ने अपनी अथॉरिटी में रहकर अगर कुछ गलत किया है थर्ड पार्टी के साथ, तो फर्म उसको लायबल होगी. फॉर एग्जांपल की बात करें तो मान लीजिए कस्टमर ने एक पार्टनर को पैसे दे दिए 10 लाख रुपए, तो फर्म उस कस्टमर से दोबारा पैसे वापस नहीं मांग सकती, बिकॉज अकॉर्डिंग टू द लॉ ऑफ एजेंसी एक बार अपन ने एजेंट को पैसे दे दिए मतलब वो प्रिंसिपल को ही दे दिया है, ऐसा माना जाएगा. ओके, सो दिस क्वेश्चन बेस्ड अपॉन section 27. Okay, it says that liability of the firm for misapplication by partners where a partner acting within his apparent authority receives money or property from a third party and misapplies it, or a firm in the course of its business receives money or property from a third party and the money or property is misapplied by any of the partners while it is in the custody of the firm is liable to make it good to the third party. Whatever loss is caused to the party, the firm is liable. Okay, तो ये section 27 था. Okay, after that the next question is question 6C. क्या कहता है? That Mike Limited company incorporated in India having license office at Singapore. Explain in detail meaning of foreign company. What straightforward question. पहले story किया, बाद में पूछ दिया अभी foreign company क्या होता है वो बताइए. And analyze whether, okay, and analysis on whether Mike Limited would be called as foreign company as it established a license office at Singapore as per the provisions of the Companies Act 2013. तो गाइस सबसे पहले ये पता होना चाहिए कि ये फॉरेन कंपनी क्या होता है. तो फॉरेन कंपनी की जो डेफिनेशन है सबसे पहले उसको हम पढ़ते हैं. एंड दैट डेफिनेशन इज गिवन सेक्शन 2 सबसेक्शन 42 में. क्या कहता है ये? That a foreign company is any company or any body corporate which is incorporated outside India. So this is one of the conditions. There are other conditions, लेकिन ये सबसे पहली कंडीशन है कि उसका जो इनकॉर्पोरेशन है वो आउटसाइड इंडिया होना चाहिए. इंडिया के कंपनीज एक्ट में वो नहीं होना चाहिए. लेकिन अगर आप क्वेश्चन पढ़ेंगे तो क्या लिखा है? द कंपनी इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन इंडिया. इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन इंडिया. सो गाइस इसी से ही पता चल जाता कि माइक लिमिटेड ये फॉरेन कंपनी नहीं है, बिकॉज वन ऑफ द बेसिक कंडीशंस इज नॉट गेटिंग फुलफिल्ड हियर. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ते कंडीशंस में. which has a place of business in India whether by itself or through an agent physically or through electronic mode and conducts any business activity in India in any other manner. So as basically three conditions हुई. पहला इनकॉर्पोरेशन आउटसाइड इंडिया है. सेकंड प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस इन इंडिया है, चाहे फिजिकल हो या इलेक्ट्रॉनिक हो. और थर्ड कंडीशन बिजनेस इन इंडिया हो. इफ ऑल दिस थ्री कंडीशंस आर सेटिस्फाइड तब जाके हम उसे फॉरेन कंपनी कहेंगे. लेकिन यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन में क्लियरली कहा गया है कि भाई कंपनी इज इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन इंडिया बट लाइसेंस ऑफिस इज आउटसाइड इंडिया. तो क्या हम इसे फॉरेन कंपनी कहेंगे? आंसर रहेगा बिल्कुल नहीं. इट इज नॉट अ फॉरेन कंपनी because it is not incorporated outside India. Even though it may have business offices in India, branches in India, लेकिन फिर भी ये इंडियन कंपनी ही मानी जाएगी क्योंकि इंडियन लॉ में उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन हुआ है. ओके, सो हे गाइस, यहाँ से सेक्शन बी शुरू हो जाता है. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट योर लॉ एग्जामिनेशन पेपर. तो भाई ये क्वेश्चन पेपर कैसा था? तो सही बताओ. तो पेपर लेंथी था, सीए फाउंडेशन में क्वेश्चंस जो पूछे गए हैं वो काफी ट्विस्टी थे, हमें यहाँ पे ब्रेन एप्लीकेशन की जरूरत थी। हाँ, कई सारे क्वेश्चंस यहाँ पे स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड भी पूछे गए हैं, लेकिन पूछूं तो इस क्वेश्चन पेपर में हमें शुरू से ही स्पीड मेंटेन करना चाहिए था। कई सारी जगह पे हमें सोचना भी पड़ा कि इस क्वेश्चन में हम कैसे आंसर लिखे, कौन सी सेक्शन नंबर आएगी, क्या टॉपिक हम यहाँ पे अप्लाई करेंगे, तो वो भी हमें करना चाहिए था। ओके, और जरूर आपने किया ही होगा। तो ये था दोस्तों हमारा सजेस्टेड आंसर। ठीक है, तो ऑल द बेस्ट, अच्छे अच्छे रिजल्ट लाओ और जल्दी से सी इंटर में आ जाओ। थैंक यू वेरी मच।